Why is our nation falling apart? Do any of us long for the days of peace and prosperity? What is the future of our nation and world going to be like? Do we know? Do we want to know? What is disease, famine, and war like? What if we have already been told what will happen? Would we believe it? In 1878, a Mormon pioneer had a dream of the future destruction of this world after retiring to bed. I went to bed at the usual hour, 9:30. I had been reading the Revelation in the French language. My mind was calm, more so than usual, if that were possible. I composed myself for sleep, but felt a strange stupor come over me, and I apparently became partially unconscious. Still, I was not asleep nor awake, but had a strange, far-away, dreaming feeling. The first thing I recognized was that I was in the tabernacle at Ogden, Utah, sitting in the corner for fear they would call on me to preach, which after singing the song they did by calling me to the stand. I arose to speak and said that I did not know that I had anything special to say except to bear my testimony of the truth of this work, when all at once it seemed I was lifted out of myself. I said, "Yes, I have something to say. It is this. Some of my brethren present have been asking me what is coming to pass. I will tell you what will shortly come to pass." Then I was in Salt Lake City, walking through the streets. In parts of the city and upon the door of every house I saw a badge of mourning, and I could not find a house but was in mourning. I passed my own home and saw the same sign there. I asked the question, "Is that me who is dead?" Something gave the answer, "No." It seemed strange to me that I saw no person on the streets in my wandering around the city. They seemed to be in their houses with their sick and dead. I saw no funeral processions or anything of that kind, but the city was very still and quiet, as if the people were praying. It seemed as though the people had control over the disease, whatever it was. I did not know. That was not shown to me. I then looked in all directions over the territory, east, west, north, and south, and found the same mourning in every place throughout the land. The next I knew I was this side of Omaha. It seemed I was above the earth looking down upon it as I passed along my way east. I saw the roads full of people, principally women, with just what they could carry in bundles on their backs, traveling to the mountains on foot, and I wondered how they would get there with nothing but a small pack on their backs. It was remarkable to me that there were so few men among them. It did not seem as though trains were running. The rails looked rusty and the roads abandoned. Indeed, I have no conception of how I traveled myself as I looked down upon the people. I continued east through Omaha and Council Bluffs, which were full of disease, and women were everywhere. The streets of Missouri and Illinois were in turmoil and strife. Men were killing one another, and women joined in the fighting. Family against family were cutting each other to pieces in the most horrible manner imaginable. Next I saw Washington, D.C., and found the city a desolation. The White House was empty, and the halls of Congress likewise. Everything was in ruin, and the people seemed to have fled from the city and left it to take care of itself. I was next in the city of Baltimore, in the square where the monument of 1812 stands in front of the St. Charles and other hotels. The dead were everywhere. I saw their bodies piled up, filling the square. I saw women cut the throats of their own children for the sake of their blood. I saw them suck it from their veins to quench their own thirst, and then lie down in the streets and die. The waters of the city and the Chesapeake Bay were so stagnant, and such a stench arose from them on account of the putrefaction of the dead carcasses in them, that the very smell carried death with it. Singularly again, I saw no men, except they were dead or dying in the streets. There were but very few women, and they were crazy and mad, or in a dying condition. Everywhere I went, I saw the same all over the city. It was horrible beyond conception to behold. I thought this was the end, but not so. Seemingly in an instant I was in Philadelphia, where everything was still. No living soul was to be seen to greet me. It seemed as though the whole city was without inhabitants. In Arch and Chestnut streets, in fact, everywhere I looked, the putrefaction of the dead bodies created such a stench that it was impossible for any creature to remain alive. I next found myself on Broadway in New York. There it seemed as if the people had done all they could to overcome the disease. But in wandering down Broadway, I saw the bodies of beautiful women lying, some dead and others in a dying condition, on the sidewalks. I saw men crawl out of the basements and violate the persons of some that were alive, then kill them and rob their dead bodies of the valuables they had on them. Then, before they could return to their basements, they themselves rolled over a time or two in agony and died. On some of the streets I saw mothers kill their own offspring and eat their flesh, then in a few minutes die themselves. And wherever I looked I saw the same sights, horror and desolation, rapine and death. No horses, no carriages, no omnibuses, nor streetcars. Nothing but death and destruction everywhere. I then went to Central Park, and looking back I saw a fire start. And just at that moment a mighty east wind sprang up and carried the flames west over the great city, and it burned until there was not a single building left standing whole, even down to the water's edge. Wharves and shipping all seemed to be burned and swallowed up in the common destruction. Nothing was left but desolation where a great city stood a short time before. Stench from the bodies that were burned was so great that it was carried a great distance across the Hudson River, and it spread disease and death wherever the fumes penetrated. I cannot paint in words the horrors that seemed to encompass me about. It was beyond description or thought for me to conceive. I suppose this was the end, but I was given to understand that the same horrors that were here enacted were all over the world, east, west, north, and south. That few were left alive, still there were some. Immediately after, I seemed to be standing on the left bank of the Missouri River, opposite the city of Independence. But I saw no city. I saw the whole state of Illinois and Missouri and a part of Iowa, a complete wilderness of desert with no living being there. I then saw a short distance from the river 12 men draped in the robes of the temple, standing in a square or nearly so. I understood it to represent the 12 gates of the New Jerusalem, and they with uplifted hands were consecrating the ground and laying the cornerstone of the temple. And while they were thus employed, I saw myriads of angels hovering over them and around them. And I heard the angels singing the most heavenly music. The words were, "Now is established the kingdom of God and his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the kingdom shall never be thrown down, for the saints have overcome." I saw people coming from the river and from distant places to help build the temple and the city. It seemed as though they were hosts of angels helping to bring material for the construction of that building. Some were in temple robes, and the pillar-like cloud continued to hover over the spot. Later I found myself in the Ogden Tabernacle, where I was calling upon the people to listen to the beautiful strains of music from the angels, as the building seemed to be filled with them, and they were singing the words I heard before. "Now is the kingdom of our God and his Christ established forever and ever." I rolled over in my bed and the clock struck 12. The vision had occurred between 9:30 p.m. and midnight. a country that is select and beautiful, a land that I have set my seal upon, will I also rend, saith the Lord, and a little one shall set it upon edge endwise. Call now your watchmen to the tower, and keep a vigil upon the Lord, that you may know that I will do it. And the city and the border, which is the center thereof, will I pluck up, saith the Lord. And I will scatter the workmen of that city, and the banner thereof will I tear in pieces. And out of the sea the monsters of the deep shall rise up, and they shall send forth desolations as a flood upon that land. And I will bring clouds of dense darkness, and overcast them with the red glare of war. And they shall hang over that land, and the fear of the Lord shall seize the hearts of that people. For lo, the red and the black shall be against her, and their gathering hosts will crowd upon the plain, and blood shall wash away the filth and the wickedness of that land. For I will shake her center, saith the Lord, and her poles of liberty shall be riven as with the lightning, for her ways are corrupted before me. The path of peace is no longer found in her borders, and her statue of justice is broken down. Her honorable men have done it. Her judges connive with men of shrewd devices and are full of pandering. Her halls of legislation are corrupted with bribery, and the people of that land seek to conceal away the lawless. Everywhere is heard the voice of them that cried, Release unto us Barabbas. The statutes of the law they will not suffer to be enforced, but esteem it worthy to shield the guilty. And the crafty defense of the murderer is rewarded with honor, for the evil technicalities of the law are turned to the profit and the glory of professional men, while they who shed the blood of innocents go free. Her forces of law and order are become conspirators in crime, and her criminals are fast multiplying in the highways of her notable cities. Thus the land is filled with violence, and there is no safety. Shall such a people govern? Where is the peaceful dwelling place of your fathers, the place of safety for my little ones, that they may not grow up corrupted? Answer thou me, shall such a people govern? And shall these things continue till there are none righteous among them that are left to dwell upon the earth, even as it was in the days of Noah? Is it not well that I have numbered your days to make an end of them? Answer me in this also, saith the Lord. And ye boast of liberty. Has not that liberty which your fathers obtained in blood become a delusion and a sham? Hear now the Lord. You grind the face of the poor, and for the toiler, the producer of all your material wealth, you have no mercy. You would yoke him as a beast of burden. The widow and the orphan, where is your provision for them? Your shrewd men rob them, and you leave them alone to perish. Also the feeble and the aged. Show me the providing statute. Only the criminal do you house and feed, and all my little ones must suffer. The strong ones who make the law make it unto themselves, while the helpless perish under their care. And will you call this liberty? Aye, and will you celebrate it, forgetful of your oppressions? Behold, is not bondage the name thereof? Do they enjoy liberty whom you grind down, and in your greed ride upon their necks? Is there any liberty at all when there is not liberty for all? Or is it liberty that you possess a franchise of sovereign power to return corrupt men to office, who rule in unrighteousness, and continually crush the weak underfoot? Hear now the Lord speak. I will drive you from the seat of authority. There shall not a corrupt man be left to rob and to plunder my people, saith the Lord. Yea, and I will break down the strong pillars of your constitution, except you remember the helpless to set my people free. For the Lord will make bare his strong right arm, and he himself will be their emancipator. My statutes, which are the laws of the land when they are righteous, shall be made strong for the right. and for discipline also, saith the Lord. And the pernicious law shall be erased from the statute book. And I will double all your penalties for crime. And the murderer shall answer with his blood, and no man shall escape, saith the Lord. Ye know that it is written that the Lord cannot endure the least degree of iniquity. Why then will you nurse it and mother the lawless as a suckling child, as if you did the world a service? Will you comfort and protect the criminal, that they may leaven my people with the spirit of crime? And will you call it charity and an acceptable service to God? Behold, in mine indignation I will require an eye for an eye. Yea, presently will I require both eyes of the wicked of this generation. For it is the hour of my coming, and ye are not able to abide the law of Christ, but rather the law of Moses. And this will I do, that darkness may settle down upon the souls of them that violate the innocent, and defy the law of God, and the law of man, until I have stamped them out as fire from beneath thy feet. And I will bring strong men, and plant them in all the high places of that land. Yea, men wondered at, saith the Lord. And they shall not fear, and my statutes and my judgments will they perform, and the land shall be cleansed. Stand by now, ye fair nation, and ye corrupt generation. Stand by and see that I will do it, saith the Lord of hosts. The drone that is laden with riches will I cut off. He shall not be left to cumber the earth, for the land shall be a hive, and my people shall swarm as the bees. And I will plant the honeysuckle and the flowery field. And the land shall increase its yield fourfold, saith the Lord. And it shall flow with milk and with honey and with fine vintage. And there shall be enough for all. And I will make labor a pleasure and a joy, and peace shall be established in all the borders of that land. And there will I build my tabernacle, saith the Lord of hosts. And with the multitude of her towers will I light the firmament of heaven. And in splendor will I exalt her domes, to meet the radiant morning of the millennial day. And then will appear the golden age of which the prophets sang, and which their eyes have longed to see. And the songs of my redeemed will mingle with the prophet's voice, and together will they sing the song of Moses and the Lamb. And then will the Zion of my bosom return to fill the vacant place, and the new Jerusalem arise, and shake herself from the dust of the earth. And together will they sing the praises of their redeeming Lord, and hosannas to their triumphant King. And the shouts of their joyful hallelujahs will rend the skies, and resound upon the earth again and yet again. For then will be brought to pass the covenant of the Father, which he made with Enoch, that the earth should rest for 1,000 years. Revelation chapter 18. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. In the cup which she has filled, fill to her double. How much she hath glorified herself, and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her, and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls, and fine linen, and purple, and silk, and scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manner vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels of most precious wood, and of brass and iron and marble, and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. And the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things which were made rich by her shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing, and saying, Alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold, and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. And every shipmaster and all the company and ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea, by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee. And no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. And the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets, and of saints, and of all that were slain upon the earth.